Hey guys, it's Celestia, and no, I didn't clickbait you. I, a professional artist, am actually about to tell you why you shouldn't make art your job. That blatant hypocrisy is not lost on me. That said, I do have every intention of clarifying what I mean by that, because there's obviously a lot more nuance to the topic than art job bad, hobby art good. But before I do, let me take a moment to thank today's sponsor, XPPen. XPPen has generously provided this month's giveaway prize, their Artist 10 second generation drawing tablet, which they let me try out beforehand. And in doing so, I learned that this tablet is just way cooler than I've ever seen a tablet be. Possibly the coolest thing is that it's not a pen tablet or a pen display tablet. It's actually both. You can switch between modes depending on how you prefer to draw, which is a feature I've never seen before and was really impressed by. Another very cool aspect is that you don't just have to use it to draw. You can even connect a Switch to it for gaming if you want to play on a bigger screen but don't have a TV available. It has a 10.1-inch screen that's fully laminated with an anti-glare paper-like texture, which you guys know I love, and has 6 express keys, which you know I love more. Mine are programmed to zoom in and out, undo and redo, and switch between my eraser and pen, but they're really easy to reprogram to suit your own personal preferences too. It comes in 4 different colors. Mine is pink because I'm basic and it's one of my favorite colors. It has 0 pen lag and excellent calibration, and the pen uses XPPen's new X3 chip technology, which means it's pretty much just all around better than older pen models that still use springs and have those super movable, wiggly nibs. There's honestly nothing about this tablet that I don't like, and they aren't paying me for this at all, so you'd better know that I mean it. You can enter to win this tablet by commenting "Don't touch my bread, government" on this video, in addition to your preferred method of contact if you win, and a winner will be drawn via random number generator on December 1st, 2022. Once drawn, I will either notify the winner by commenting back on their original comment or via the method they specified, and they will have 72 hours to respond before a new winner is drawn. Thank you so much to XPPen for sponsoring this video and providing such an awesome prize, and I hope whoever wins it enjoys it just as much as I do. Now, all that aside, let's get into the video. Like I said, I am going to tell you why you shouldn't make art your job, but I want to get a few things out of the way right off the bat. These are just my opinions based on the very individual experiences that I've had, and will not be applicable to all types of art careers or even everyone pursuing the same kind of one that I have. A lot of the issues that prompted my opinions are very unique to the specific career path of a freelance illustrator and content creator, and other paths can be completely different. More specifically, animators and contract-based industry artists, while they have their own share of problems unique to those fields, probably won't face a lot of the problems that I'm going to talk about today. So with that in mind, if you're planning on pursuing those paths instead, making art your job might not be a bad plan. Although I'd encourage you to do some research into the downfalls those artists face instead beforehand, because there's no shortage. Most of what I'll talk about today will only be relevant to those of you interested in freelance illustration and/or content creation as a career, and even then, I'm not telling you straight up that you shouldn't pursue that career. I'm saying there are a lot of aspects of it that I wish someone had warned me about before I decided to pursue it, and I want to be that person to tell as many of you as possible so that your decision is as informed as possible. I don't necessarily regret becoming a professional artist, but I do think that if I'd known everything I know now back when it was just my dream, I might have gone a different direction. So why should you not make art your job? Well, if you're anything like I was, because you probably have a handful of very inaccurate misconceptions about what that job will actually be like, and pursuing it anyway will give you some very harsh wake-up calls, probably one right after the other. Like when Dan Avidan said, "Life is a repeated, endless kick to the nuts," and when you think you've got the hang of it, life is like, "Hey, I got these new boots I'd like to try out on your nuts." And I am really making freelance illustration out to be the steamiest pile of shit right now. It's really not. There are just a lot of things about it that do suck, and they're things I wasn't prepared for, so I want you to be. That in mind, let's get into the biggest misconceptions about art as a job that I had, and what the reality of the situation actually is that might make that job less appealing. And the first one is the idea that being an artist professionally is just one job at all. I went into this thinking that this career would basically just end up being doing commissions for a living, or selling my existing art for a living. In reality, if you want to make enough to live on as a freelance artist without a day job, you need to be doing like 10 smaller jobs at once. Commissions alone won't pay for rent and bills unless you're getting $1 million or charging very, very high rates. And selling existing art, be it in galleries, in markets or stores, or on merch online, would probably only ever make you enough to live on if you were regularly selling fine art paintings for thousands of dollars, a attending every possible art market in your area as a vendor, or you have a huge following that is regularly buying all of your merch. So to supplement that, you have to branch out even more and spread yourself out even thinner. Do commissions, sell at conventions and markets, sell merch online, start streaming your art, work for content creators who need art or assets, start making and selling brushes or textures for digital art programs, sell licenses to use your existing work as stock art, make paid classes or tutorials, teach art, find local stores and markets that will display and sell your stuff, and so on. It's a constant struggle to try to find more ways to make money from your art. All the while, people will shit all over you for trying to make money from your art. Like, you'll be sitting there trying to figure out how you can afford this box of Kraft dinner, and people will look you dead in the eye and say a real artist isn't in it for the money. But that's its own shit show of an issue. My point is that doing art for work as a freelancer isn't one job. It's a million small jobs that you hope you'll find enough of to break even that month. For example, my monthly income is made up of commissions, ad revenue from YouTube, sponsorships from YouTube, merch sales from my Etsy, art sales at conventions, local markets, and events, paid art critiques for Jing Sketch's art clinic, Patreon and Ko-fi, tattoo design sales, and soon the sale of tutorials and Procreate brushes, stamps, and textures. It's a lot, and it's incredibly overwhelming to manage. It is something that gets better with time though. Like, you start building a client base that's more stable and consistent, your business starts growing, and things don't stay quite that shitty forever. In that regard, it's no different than a lot of small businesses. But even when it gets better on the financial side and you're no longer a starving artist hoping to find enough work to pay the bills, the actual job side still usually means doing a million things at once, even if those things become easier to rely on and anticipate. And it's an incredibly chaotic, stressful, disorganized, exhausting way to live sometimes. Most times. To the point where I regularly look at people working 9-to-5 jobs and think, my god, their work ends when they go home at 5? My work doesn't even end when I'm in bed. It takes up a lot of time and effort, and it can be so difficult to separate your work life from your personal life, or even make any real time for the latter at all. I had to add 2 hours to all of my work days for a month in order to take one weekend off to go to the mountains with my mom, and that's something I do maybe once a year. That's not the case for everyone, especially for more well-adjusted people who aren't constantly obsessing over their work, but with this career, you do kind of have to sometimes if you want to advance it. The next misconception I had about making art my job was one that was pretty aggressively taught to me by the entirety of society, because the concept is a phrase that everyone's heard. If you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. I thought that because I loved making art as much as I did, I would love making it professionally just as much. And sometimes I do, but people don't talk nearly enough about the fact that other times, whether or not you love making art is heavily dependent on what you actually love about art. So if what you love about art is drawing your own ideas more than the actual process of drawing, spending the majority of your time drawing other people's ideas for money is probably going to make you miserable. If you do genuinely love the process just as much, you might have a great time with it. If what you love about art is the complete creative freedom to depict a subject however you want, working on a project with strict parameters that forces you to mimic someone else's style down to the letter is going to be a thoroughly joyless experience for you. And that's going to be the case for any job. I mean, even if you love some parts of it, there are going to be other parts that you hate and you have to do anyway, because that's life and it's unavoidable. But creative careers are often sold to us as the exception to that rule, which makes it all the more soul-crushingly disappointing to learn that they're not, at all. And before you pursue one, I think it's unbelievably important to analyze exactly what it is you love about making art, and how much of that you'll actually get to do by making it your job, and how much of the aspects you don't love you're willing to do anyway while still having that job be enjoyable to you. Because learning too late that an art job means spending 90% of your time doing something you derive no pleasure from is horrible, and having to keep doing it indefinitely is gonna burn you out and kill your creativity faster than you can possibly anticipate. I was talking to a friend recently who basically said doing art for a living can be like licensing out your creativity to someone else for a price, and he wasn't wrong. It's so hard to maintain your love for art when you're doing that, and it's even harder to make sure you make enough time for your own personal art to avoid losing that love. The next misconception I had about art as a job kind of goes hand in hand with that, and it's that doing art professionally would mean pursuing my own creativity and ideas. That if I made art my job, it would mean bringing all of the concepts and ideas that I'd been developing over the years to life, because, I mean, I'd have the skills and the means to do so. And I do, now, have the skills and means to do so. What I don't have is the time to do so. So I went into this career path thinking that at the end of it, I would be able to make my manga, or my webcomic, or my video game, or my art books. And in reality, I'm making those things for other people. The majority of my time is spent making art for other people's comics and games and awesome ideas, and I have almost no time left after doing that for my own. I've been doing art as a job seriously for 6 years, and my art book still only has a few finished pieces ready for it. My manga manga is still nothing more than 2 notebooks worth of ideas and concepts dating back 10 goddamn years. My webcomic just has a logo and a character design and half a floor plan for the main setting. My video game has a rough map, a shitload of concept art, and a folder's worth of planning that still hasn't turned into any real production. Because with my current workload, I get about 1 full day a month to work on all of them. And the argument can absolutely be made that if I keep at this for a few more years and keep working to advance my career, I may eventually reach a point where I can afford to make more time for those projects and less time for the work that I do for other people. And that may very well be true, and I guess I'll have to find out and get back to you. But the point remains that getting to that point in your career takes a long time, and going into this field with the goal of doing it soon, or maybe at all, depending on whether or not you end up being able to stick it out, will probably result in some heartbreakingly severe disappointment. It did for me. I recently did an almost 3-hour-long deep dive into art school with a friend of mine named James, a former art student, which is linked in the iCard above. If you're interested in hearing both of us go over whether or not art school is valuable or worthwhile, go watch that. But the point that's relevant to this is that he and I spent the day together for that video, doing both the art school tour and the interview. And in the interim, we talked a lot about art and our experiences with it. And I won't go into too much detail because it's really not my place to share that detail, but essentially, after art school, he did pursue art professionally for a while, but then decided to stop because having to pour all of his time, effort, and most importantly, creativity into work for others just to make it as a professional artist was killing his creativity. And he had no time to make the things that he wanted or pursue his own ideas. And as soon as he stopped and chose a different career path, he was able to find his love for art again and revive his creativity. And now he actually has the spare time and resources to devote to the ideas that made him love it in the first place. Now when he has a cool art-based thing he wants to make, he can, and he can pour his full passion into it. And like, yes, the argument could be made that he has less time than he would probably like because of how much time he has to spend on his job, but like, if having an art-based job already doesn't allow you much, if any, spare time, is that really any worse? As far as I'm concerned, it's better. If an art job and a non-art job are both gonna limit the spare time that you have to devote to your passions and ideas, why not do the one that limits it less and also makes you less creatively drained? I don't know, honestly. It obviously depends on the person and the situation and whether or not the non-art job actually does leave them enough free time, and whether or not they find the art job creatively draining to begin with, and what their priorities are, and a million other things that it would take me 2 million years to list, so I won't. The point is that I can't make any definitive statement one way or the other as to whether or not a non-art job is better than an art job in terms of allowing you the time and freedom to pursue your art-based passions, but at least for me, I think I would rather have a non-art job and more time to make art for me if I could do it all over again. But I can't, and that's a hard pill to swallow at this point in my life. So if you can save yourself that pill by considering what matters to you in this regard sooner rather than later, I cannot encourage you to enough. So in conclusion, what am I saying here? Don't make art your job? Do make art your job? What? Well, just like when it came to discussing whether or not you should go to art school, I can't tell you that definitively. It depends on you and what you find important and valuable. But I do really want to warn you to take the decision seriously and think twice about making art your job, because it's not necessarily everything it's cut out to be a lot of the time. I've had both clients and friends with day jobs who have the disposable income and spare time to spend all of it growing and improving as artists and making everything they love. And I look at them with so much envy, because at least in my experience and that of many others I've heard from, that's not something that having an art job really allows for. I wish someone had warned me to look really goddamn closely at all of the possible downsides of an art career before pursuing one, because all I heard growing up was either don't do it, you'll be a starving artist, or doing what you love will make you endlessly happy. And I was okay with being poor because I was already poor, and happiness and art all the time sounded pretty damn good, so I went with it. And again, I'm not necessarily saying I regret going with it. I'm grateful to be where I am, to be able to make art my whole life. But I do think I would have done things differently if I'd known exactly what it was really like. And I want you guys to know before you make the same decisions I did, if those are decisions that you're considering. So that in mind, I guess what I'm saying is that above all else, you should evaluate what makes you love art, whether or not an art job would allow you to do those things to the fullest extent, and decide whether or not you would still enjoy that art job if it meant spending a lot of your time not doing those things. And if you would, make art your job. Get it, girl. If you wouldn't, though, pursue a different career path and make art your passion instead. You can always pursue your artistic ideas as potential jobs later on, but you'll at least have the time to get them to that point first. Like, my game, manga, or webcomic could all end up being primary aspects of my job, but I don't have the free time to develop them to that point. If having a different job allows you more time to develop yours to that that point, you could always pursue them as jobs then instead. And in most cases, you'll probably reach that point a lot faster. And if you do decide to make art your job, honestly, I think the only way to survive that while still maintaining your love for art is to make a very, very clear divide between your work art and your personal art, and fight tooth and nail to make sure you have at least some time for your personal work. At least that's how it is for me. I'm able to get through all of my work art because of that one day a month that I can devote to all of my personal projects, and the brief moments of downtime that I fill with art journaling or painting flowers or sketching things I love. Those moments, those hours, those days, those rejuvenate me as an artist. They refill my creativity, and they remind me why I love art and fought so hard to pursue it in the first place. And I'm constantly trying to make more time for those moments as a result. So long as you have that to bring you joy and love for what you do, and you separate it from the work that takes the joy and love away, I do believe that you can make it work in a way that fulfills you. But I did title this video, Don't Make Art Your Job, so let me end this off with a follow through to that clickbait. Don't make art your job if you can't handle criticism, micromanaging, or rejection, because applying to and working for both clients and companies will open you up to a lot of both. Don't make art your job if you don't have the devotion and willpower to stick out years of shitty, inconsistent pay that you can't count on and can barely live on, not to mention the feeling of failure associated with the idea that you're not, quote unquote, making it as an artist yet. Don't make art your job if you don't have the time and energy to devote spending your every waking minute working to advance both your craft and your career, because it will inevitably require you to, at least to some extent. And if you have a lot of obligations outside of work or a really active social life or something, you might not be able to commit to the necessary degree. Don't make art your job if you're either really disorganized or can't handle a really disorganized lifestyle, because freelancing means handling like 50 tasks at any given moment, and if you're flaky, easily overwhelmed, or prone to procrastination, it might not be something you're well suited to. Don't make art your job if having a very fluctuating, chaotic income is something you can't work with financially, be it because it would stress you out, or because you have dependents or family that rely on you, or something else entirely. Don't make art your job if you aren't completely sure that you've prepared for what that means for you, or if you haven't thoroughly researched what it's like. And don't make art your job if you're not okay with putting your own art on hold to prioritize making money from art that you make for others. I guess just don't make art your job if you're not okay with making a lot of sacrifices to make it work for you. Because like anything that's worth it, you have to sacrifice a lot to get it. It's just important that you make sure it is worth it to you before you invest your life in it like I have. But that's all for me. I can't make the decision for you. All I can really do is encourage you to make it very, very carefully. Again, there are other types of art careers outside of freelance illustration and content creation that might work out better for you, but those also often require formal education, and again, also come with their own downsides that I haven't covered here in the slightest. If you're interested in hearing about those too, let me know, because I'm happy to interview some more guests and get back to you on that. But for now, I can only comment on the freelancer side of things. And on that side, I guess I just hope I've made at least someone think more carefully about whether or not it's right for them. Before I end this off though, I want to introduce you to a brand new segment of my videos, the fan art gallery. I know I've distanced myself from the community a lot over the past few months due to both harassment and my own fears and lack of free time, but the last thing I want is for you guys to feel unappreciated as a result, especially when you've taken the time to make fan art of Celestia. I mean, you guys don't see what happens behind the scenes, which is that I save every piece of fan art to print out and add to a big post-it board in my office that I regularly cry over. And I want to do something you do see, so I'm going to, with the fan art gallery. Once a month, or as often as applicable anyway, I'll showcase fan art from anyone who's drawn Celestia at the end of my video, so that everyone can see exactly how talented you guys are. I don't want to feature people who don't want to be featured, so I won't feature all of the pieces that I've seen already, but will instead include the ones that people have explicitly mentioned being okay with me including. That in mind, if you want your fan art shown in these segments, please mention me on social media or DM it to me alongside your consent for it to be included. And this applies to existing fan art too, not just new stuff. If you drew Celestia months ago and are hearing this now and want it to be included, just let me know in the same way and I'll make sure that it is. There's no time limit. I want to thank all of you guys as much as I can for the art that you spend your time and effort making for me, and I want you to feel as appreciated as you are. So look forward to that now and in the future. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and please leave a like and subscribe if you did. Special thank you as always to channel members Cafe Soleil, Joseph Solomon, Unknown Code, Abyss Reborn, and Lucian Izapa, as well as patrons Batman, Kyle Lowe, Blue Swanson, This Is Totally My Name, Unity, Cora Fear, Jamisha Walker, Shirome Artiste, Elenkshi, Soul Crystal, and Kim Yin for their support, and I'll see you in the next one.